This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com with a daily combat sports news update for Saturday, October the 24th. Maybe because, I don't know why, but there is no SmackDown rating in from last night yet. I guess it might be tomorrow or Monday. For some reason, it's late this week. Khabib defeated Justin earlier tonight at Fight Island UFC. Khabib went 29-0 in his career, won by submission in the second round tonight, and announced his retirement, citing that now that his father has passed away, he really doesn't want to fight anymore. It does seem like a more legitimate retirement than the one that Conor McGregor made earlier this year. As we know, he's fighting again next year now in January, I believe. So congratulations on a great career to, I believe he's the lightweight champion, Khabib. In other news, Thunder Rosa, the NWA Women's Champion, who also wrestles for AEW, is doing an interview with me live tomorrow night, Sunday at 10 p.m. on this channel. For anyone that doesn't know, The Hannibal TV is an affiliate of the NWA. You can go to thehannibaltv.com, click on our NWA link, or click on the link in this description to buy the NWA pay-per-views for as little as $7.99 a pay-per-view, or you can buy a bundle of 4 for $23.99, and you'll be helping me out, helping this channel out if you use our affiliate link. And in some interesting news that a lot of you smart marks that listen to this, not that I'm not a smart mark myself, I'm interested in the business of pro wrestling. There's an independent company called the NAWA that is going to run the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach, Florida on December 19th of this year. It's going to be a pay-per-view on Fight TV. It's going to feature the likes of Davey Boy Smith Jr., who is the Hannibal TV champion. Gangrel is going to be on the card. I don't have it in front of me, but there's some others announced. But from what I understand, I did talk to actually the promoter of the show earlier today, who is going to get me some interviews with some of the stars of the events leading into it. And he says it's happening. And I actually went on the Ocean Center's ticketing website. And yes, an independent company has rented this 9,000 seat arena for an event. It's only going to be set up for about, I think, around 2,500 or so. But that is a big thing for an independent company to be running a large building like that. There is a good chance I'm going to go there and cover the events, by the way. That is December 19th in Daytona Beach, Florida at the Ocean Center. So I'm always interested in independent companies that run big arenas. The Hannibal TV, my company, Great North Wrestling, has run some big arenas over the years. Our biggest crowd was 4,000. We've had several crowds in the 2,000s and 3,000s. But I'm at the point in my life where I don't want to invest huge money on shows anymore. I'll get into some of your questions. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Devon Hannibal. And if you DM me, I'll follow you back. Or at the Hannibal TV, Michael Kennedy says hello. Eric says Khabib is by far the most dominant UFC fighter he's ever seen. CAPA, how did the guy that works for the government do against Swagger? That fight is next Thursday on Bellator. And the guy that's fighting Swagger, you were part of that chat. He did an interview with me. earlier this week. You guys can check it out here if you haven't seen it. Varsity says 29-0. No one else did it like him. Jay Smith is mad that they've locked down Canada again. I have looked into it, though. Even though we aren't allowing Americans into Canada, Canadians can apparently go to the U.S. not by car, but if they fly to the U.S., we will be allowed in the U.S. I've been investigating it because, as I said, I would like to go back to the U.S. Obviously, the Hannibal TV is most popular there, and there's events I want to cover there, like this huge event. December 19th in Daytona Beach would be a good one. Gregory says Khabib was one of the greatest in MMA history. I don't know. I'm not getting into politics here. Luis from Puerto Rico says my channel is great. Shout out to all my friends in Puerto Rico. Even though my time, who I've had on this channel a few times, brought it up in an interview, and I did post it as an individual clip, and somebody from the United Wrestling Network saw it. But let's just say it wasn't an offer I couldn't refuse. Let's just put it that way. Tony Smith tips me $5 and says, Great North Wrestling is the only legit wrestling company left in North America. Well, thank you for that. Great North Wrestling is presenting some Forest of Fear matches very, very, very soon. As someone mentions the Forest of Fear here, but whenever these lockdown restrictions ends, I am planning on running again, and Great North Wrestling is going to have a focus on women's wrestling when we return. You're still going to see some great wrestlers like the Blood Hunter and Haku and Davey Boy Smith Jr. if he's not in WWE by the time we're allowed to run again, which there is a chance of that. But maybe if he's in NXT UK, they'll make an exception and still let him wrestle for us here and there. I don't know. I am on good terms with some people in WWE still, so who knows if they'll allow that or not. Something not to worry about now. Michael McDonald says AEW is just one big joke. One big unfunny joke, in my opinion. $100. What do I like better, being a heel or babyface? Well, that's an interesting question because I much prefer being a heel, but for a while I was a babyface. And I think around 2011, I really peaked at being a babyface. And I was a good babyface, better than I ever thought I could be. And it was funny because my father always told me, like the first part of my career, I always refused to be a babyface. And he always told me he thought I'd be a good babyface. And at one point, when I was going through that whole struggle with the Hep C, before I briefly took a 3-year hiatus to actually get cured of the disease and undergo treatments. But for a while, I was still having matches and just not bleeding in matches, or if accidental blood occurred, it happened once, we stopped the match early. But during that period, I just couldn't be a heel because people really felt bad for me. And I was over, like, as a huge babyface. Terry, do I like boxing? I actually love boxing. And I think if I were to fight again, not that I've been an amateur wrestler. I had 3 kickboxing exhibitions. If I were to, I did have an MMA fight scheduled before I found out I had Hep C, but then I obviously couldn't get my license due to that. It was right around the time I was signed by WWE. I was supposed to have an MMA fight that August. But yeah, I love boxing, and if I were to fight, it will be in boxing if I fight again, because I absolutely love boxing, and I have been working on my striking. I have a heavy bag in my basement that I use multiple times every week. I have striking trainers, and I do think I'm going to go back to regular boxing lessons soon. All of our merchandise, by the way, like this hoodie I'm wearing and tons of Great North Wrestling shirts and Hannibal TV merchandise, is in the link in the description or at thehannibaltv.com. You can find the link. Yeah, Cup likes boxing. And by the way, I have a bunch of boxing interviews on this channel. For anyone that doesn't know, Evander Holyfield I've interviewed, George Chuvalo I've interviewed, Larry Holmes, Michael Spinks I have over an hour interview with. And I want to do more boxing interviews too. What's the latest from the border? I already said this a few minutes ago. It's closed for Americans to come here, but apparently the restrictions might be a little less for us going there. Terry says, what do I think about Mike Tyson fighting again? It's an exhibition fight. I want him to win. I was another boxing story. You guys can look it up on here. About 4 years, this is what actually got me interested in boxing. To talk about my love of boxing. Back about 4 years ago or so, maybe 5 years ago, Roy Jones Jr. was going to fight somebody with no experience on a pay-per-view called the UR Fight. And you had to do a promo to enter into the contest to fight Roy Jones Jr. I did a promo. It had around 50 or 60,000 hits. The promoters contacted me. They were interested in me being the guy to fight Roy Jones Jr. It was going to be in Phoenix, the city that I'm going to live in one day, hopefully. But what happened was the commission would not sanction me to fight Roy Jones Jr. because I didn't have any pro fights on my record. So they almost gave me the fight. What ended up happening is they gave the fight to like the second place guy who had had 2 MMA fights. He wasn't a boxer either, but he had a record of 2 pro MMA fights, and Roy Jones knocked him out. But I really wanted to fight Roy Jones. I know my chances of winning were low, but like, what do you have to lose by fighting Roy Jones Jr.? But to point out why I got into boxing during that time is because once I started training in boxing right away, as soon as I heard about that competition, and then once the promoters told me that I was likely going to fight Roy Jones, I actually hired a private boxing trainer and started like training extremely serious in boxing. And then it ended up not happening, but I've still kept up with it. Oh, someone has been asking for Piper. Here she is. We'll close this off, Mike, with Piper, who's in a sweater because it's very cold here in Canada. So have a good night, everybody. Check in with us at 10 p.m. tomorrow for Thunder Rosa, the NWA Women's Champion.